What did you then do?
And then I was like, well, I actually don't want to work in vineyards in gumboots in the middle of winter.
Something about you wanting to always get into gumboots, isn't there? Whether you're in stables cleaning out the shit of horses
like,
or you're on vineyards.
What was I thinking?
Maybe you thought you were this nature-loving person
And
who wanted to be out in nature.
Like I love nature.
Yeah.
But I love it when I
you
choose
don't really
to be
love
out
nature.
in it.
You wanted climate-controlled nature.
100%. It was awful.
Smelling like shit the whole time.
Yeah, I don't think this is for me. Do you know what? I actually think that what I'm really good at is figuring out what I'm not smart at. What does it take to live a life where you've fulfilled your potential? That is probably one of the things that I regret, is that I didn't give it my absolute best. I have no idea what I would have been capable of.
But why do you regret that?
Because it's unfulfilled potential.
Yeah.
I think it's an integrity question. For me, integrity is not just doing what you say you're going to.
Right.
It's how well are you living it in alignment with your values. I also see so many people having the conversation about, I know I've got a greater purpose in this, I don't know what it is. I had an idea about what my purpose was from probably my early 20s. I just had no idea how to actually implement that. You know, if you've experienced trauma or challenges in your life, you know, once you've done a certain amount of healing, what I call healing or therapy or whatever, I think it's a lot easier to get to that place of clarity when you've done that kind of inner work.
Yeah. And you know what, Don? I also think purpose is not a right or wrong answer.
Agree.
Donna.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me on Thirsty Coconut. I really appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be here, Rach.
Appreciate it. And no doubt I'll feel the love throughout the interview as well. Hey, I wanted to get you in here because I'm keen to learn about your life experiences and your career path and all things Donna. No doubt I imagine that our Thirsty Coconuts, your journey will resonate with many of our Thirsty Coconuts out there. No doubt there will be surprises and no doubt your story will inspire. So we're going to get on with the show now, I guess.
All right, let's do it.
The Donna of today, if I have this right, the Donna of today is the owner and founder of Donna Wallace Healing, with a focus on healing alternatives and switching on your light. Alongside your healing work, you also are the owner and founder of House of Orion, which produces custom-made jewelry that is energetically connected with your clients who have worked on healing with you along their journey actually of healing.
Yeah.
Have I got that right? That's the Donna of today.
Yeah.
Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So far, so good, Rach.
Mate,
Keep on going.
100 points. I've done my homework. And so as I said, I wanted to sit down with you and just kind of go through a timeline of, you know, kind of that Donna in high school, what you were like as a student. Was there intentionality and were you inclined to go with specific subjects in your high school years that was geared towards a career back then? And then, of course, understand what you were like going through university, if you went to uni, and what was life like for you thereafter, and basically just get to know you in this conversation. You good with that?
I am.
Awesome.
Are you ready for this roller coaster?
Absolutely ready. And I think our viewers will be ready for this roller coaster as well. So, Donna, let's start with what you were like as a student in high school.
Gosh, I said to you before we started recording, Rach, that my son is in year 8. And if you've got kids, you'll know that when your kids hit a particular age, it often triggers stuff for you at that age. So high school was a mixed bag for me. Absolutely. Yeah. When I first entered high school, I was really shy at school.
Yep.
I showed up completely different at home, but at school I was really shy, really introverted. Got picked on and bullied at least for year 7, maybe into year 8. Yeah. By year 9, I was starting to find myself and find my feet and kind of enjoy life, enjoy friendships and things like that more. From
Right.
an academic perspective, I guess I was always academically inclined.
Yeah.
Um, and when
Explains
I
why you're so
was,
smart.
pardon?
Explains why you're so smart.
I wouldn't say that I'm
No?
particularly smart.
Yeah.
No. Do you know what? I actually think that what I'm really good at is figuring out what I'm not smart at
Love
and
that.
building my life around what I am naturally gifted or smart with.
Yes.
So I think that has been a really like decades of a work in progress.
Yeah. I was going to say.
Yeah. So my high school years were really me trying to find myself.
Right.
I'd say that, I was in high school in the 90s, right? So it's a whole nother era.
Yeah.
And,
We were basically allowed to do
culture,
anything.
we could do anything, but we were exposed to in this day and age, kids are exposed to a lot with social media and all of that. In that day and age, the messaging that we were exposed to around the dieting culture and patriarchal norms and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I think was pretty horrendous.
I agree.
I would say that I had an undiagnosed eating disorder in high
Right.
school. At points, I was quite depressed.
Yeah.
And yeah, my family kind of went through a bit at that time.
Right.
There was that big recession,
Mm.
sort of
In
what
the
was
early
it,
90s.
mid-90s or something
1992,
like
that was the recession we had to have.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Well,
Paul
yeah.
Keaton said that.
I don't know about that, but all
No,
I know was
totally
that,
disagree that was the recession we needed to have. It was
no,
awful.
it was
yeah.
pretty horrendous, wasn't it? I remember walking past those sandwich boards outside the bank, and interest rates were 18%.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, and we think, 7 or 8% or
Yeah.
whatever, is bad.
I agree. My parents almost lost their home. In fact, yeah, they were almost lost their home at that time. And
Yeah.
I remember that was terrible for our family as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went through something similar, but it was connected to my dad's business at the time.
Right.
And so there was stuff going on in my family unit, and I think they thought that I was fine.
Mm.
And there was parts of me that were and parts of me that weren't.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a good group of friends, mind you,
Yeah.
and that was great.
Yep.
And I found myself, by the time I was hitting year 10, I was really ready to explore. I was kind of, one part of me really enjoyed maths, and I was gravitating towards biology. I really loved biology. I had an amazing teacher. You know when you have standout teachers
Yeah.
that you still remember? Like
Absolutely.
I had Mrs. Shannon, my biology teacher, was phenomenal, and it got me interested in the science of how things worked, I guess.
Gotcha.
I liked chemistry, and then I had another part of me that loved the arts.
Right.
And so I really found this place where that creative self-expression, I felt like I was creating things or expressing myself in a new way, like a self-discovery process, really.
Yeah.
And I had friends in both camps. I had arty friends and I had the academic friends. I was that kid that I did have some close best girlfriends.
Yeah.
And I've still a couple of them I'm still close with now. But then I could really kind of got along with all different sort of friendship groups.
Yeah. I love that.
The sporty kids, the muso kids, the grunge kids, all of them.
Yeah. I remember my high school days. I mean, I went to a couple of high schools. My first year of high school was all about friends, actually. And I went into high school mathematically feeling ready. And then I don't know why I took topics like trigonometry and all these other hard ass subjects in math. And I'm like, nope, this is not happening for me. And then I just felt like this business brain switched on for me. So it was just so such a transformation during high school because I did business. I also did art, and I loved art as well. But I never saw myself being an artist in any way, and I never really took it seriously. But I did really well in art, which is bizarre. Yeah, a lot of people I've been talking to recently have had art in their high school days, but yeah, it's such an interesting topic to me.
Yeah, for me, art is sort of woven in and out. There've been big periods of time where I haven't done any art.
Mm,
Like in my 20s, I took art classes and
yeah.
I love doing that. And then just more recently, I got back into watercolor painting again, like
No.
as a therapeutic, personal, just for me,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
to show anyone else,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
for, I don't know, just for, am I allowed to swear on this podcast? Just for
100% you
shits
can.
and giggles,
Absolutely. You can say whatever you want on this
Thanks.
podcast, Donna.
Is that better?
Yeah. You can say whatever you like on this podcast,
Great.
Donna.
Okay. So, yeah, high school was a really mixed bag for me.
Yeah.
It was definitely a time where I was trying to find myself. And in the middle of that, when I was 15, so what would that be? Year 10? For me, it was
Yeah.
year 10 because I was a
Year 9,
young,
year 10. You
yeah,
must have been at the,
yeah,
what do
I
they call
turned
it? Cut off
17
before.
in
Yeah.
year 12. So at 15, my family weirdly started doing personal development courses. And so I started doing that when I was 15. And that was an amazing thing for me at that age because it really started to help me understand who I was, figure out how to communicate more effectively.
Yeah.
It was and was the turning point actually for my spiritual journey because I met my dear friend Joan there. We happened to live in
Okay.
the same suburb. This personal development training was in the city, and my mum knew her because they would catch the train together into the city sometimes and talk. And then when we saw her in there, kind of hit it off and developed this. So, she was older than my mum.
Right.
She actually became like my spiritual mum.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and that's how the doors for me opened up for my spiritual journey. One day I was upset at that personal development
Yes.
course, and she came in and she said, "Oh, Donna, do you want to just come over and I was breaking up with a boyfriend."
Right.
Yeah. But, first
Perfect timing.
heartbreak, yeah.
Yeah.
And she took me over into the corner of the room and said, "Just sit down. I'll put my hands on your shoulders." And she gave me Reiki.
Wow.
And to feel that warmth and that love and that, I
the
didn't
first
know
time,
how to
not
articulate
experienced it.
that at
Yeah.
that point in time, right? But looking back, I can say I knew that it calmed me down immediately and it just felt like kind of home. And so then after that, I knew I needed to find out
Yeah.
more. But
That's
do you want to go
amazing.
back to high school?
I do,
stuff?
but
Yeah.
I want to talk about the personal development training because I was going to ask you, how did you come about doing that? But I wanted to also ask you, how long was that process for you? Like, was that over the course of, a couple of years? You started at 15.
Yeah, I think I did it for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. So that was really actually
And
quite a big part.
intensive, actually. There was a part where I was doing leadership training towards the end, like a year of intensive leadership training. It taught me how to speak in front of
Yeah.
groups of people as well, like training around that,
Yes.
which was really good for me.
Yeah.
And I think it really helped me with my confidence.
Yeah. So all of this was during high school. So it started at
Yeah.
15, a few
Like
years.
until maybe I went into uni, that first year of
Really?
uni or
That
something.
much?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Just because I liked it, I wanted it, and I wanted to do more.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you signed up for that long.
Yeah.
I signed up for the first course,
Yep.
loved it.
Yep.
There was something about the kind of healing and resolution that you could get in relationship and how that made me feel,
Yep.
And
did it help you with your breakup? Did it sort of help you reflect on it and kind of think about you as a person? And
Interestingly,
'cause
I don't think I
as a
ever really
teenager-
applied that.
yeah,
I don't know. I just sort of
maybe
dealt with that.
subconsciously.
Maybe.
Because I know as teenagers, I always am like, I know with my girls, or I should say our girls, when they were teenagers, we were always like, look, get to know yourself first before you get into a relationship. Getting into a relationship as a teenager is early because you really need to learn about yourself and you really need to learn what you're like as a person, because we tend to invest ourselves in that relationship when you're a teenager. And then that person, the other person, becomes everything about you, or you then become kind of reliant that that is your whole, when actually you haven't even learned about yourself yet. You haven't understood what you're like by yourself. You haven't understood what you're like, when you're sad and alone. So I was keen to
Well,
understand, did this actually help you get through that, your breakup, or was it your breakup so insignificant it probably didn't even need to?
I don't
Know what I
remember, to
mean?
be honest. I really don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember thinking like utilizing the practices or, the concepts on that particular relationship.
Right.
I mean, how old were you, do you think, Rach, when you hit that space of knowing yourself well enough
Wow.
to be in a relationship?
To be in a relationship, I mean, I didn't have a very serious relationship until I was in my early 20s. And so I think for me, I was in my teenage years, I was actually just happy to discover who I was. And I was happy to play in that space. As much as I actually wanted a partner, I didn't really know myself well enough to go into a relationship. I was such an awkward child. Like, I was also
Were
an
you?
introvert. I was,
Were you awkward?
yeah, absolutely. I was awkward. I was an introvert. I didn't know how to communicate my feelings. And as you say, like, that whole absence of the patriarch for me was an issue. I think
yeah.
I didn't know it at the time, but I reckon that was partly it. Because I was confident in my strengths, but I didn't feel like a confident person all the time with others. So if I was that giddy person, like if I saw somebody I was attracted to, or, I really liked being around, I wouldn't have the faintest idea what to say to them, or how to act or whatever. So like in
Well,
that
we can all
sense,
be awkward like that.
yeah, like in that sense, I was super awkward. But then in other things that I really knew I could do, which was generally physical, with my hands, or if I was sporty, or if I was like, in a race of some sort, or competing in a sport, 100%, no worries. If I was doing those, if I was doing jump rope or elastics when we used to play as kids, no worries. But when it came to matters of the heart and people that I would meet that I would be drawn to, that weren't friends, yeah, super awkward. I didn't know how to communicate on that level either.
I think why I love that personal development training was it was really the first place that I could express my emotions and be understood
Yeah.
and understand myself
Yep.
in those emotions. I
So
would say I was a
cool.
highly emotional child that probably ended up throwing a hell of a lot of tantrums because
Right.
I wasn't understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah. So I think that it would have looked like, I was also the good girl, right? So on one hand, I was the good girl. On the other hand, I was throwing tantrums as a young child.
Mm.
But, my mum did her absolute best.
Yeah.
My mum and dad both did their absolute best. And from where they've come from to how they parented me is like
Yep.
chalk and cheese. And then again, in my generation, from where I've come from and
Yep.
how I was parented to how I'm parenting now, again, like chalk and cheese. So
Yes.
that is a beautiful part of evolution or
Yes.
conscious evolution, because if we're stopping those repeating patterns and cycles, then we grow
100%.
and we're all a lot happier and more balanced, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel
With
like
you. I'm with
where are
you.
we going now in our conversation?
Just keep going. I think understanding your years in high school, the next thing I was going to ask you was, so you got through high school, your subjects done.
Yeah.
Did you know, you went through, I just learned that you went through training, personal training,
Yeah.
development, but then your subjects, like, did you choose the subjects towards the business end of high school that you knew you were going to see through to your career? Like, did you know what you were going to do in the future?
I had
Like,
no
tell me about
idea.
that.
I distinctly remember looking through was it the VTAC guide
Yeah.
then? And looking at
I've got
it
Zena
looked
nodding
like
her
a
head as the
white
teacher
paper.
over there saying,
Yeah.
yes, it's a VTAC guide.
And looking at these like tiny little lines of print like they were in the old telephone books of all the different courses and professions. And
Super
I
overwhelming.
had no idea what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think that by the time I'd hit around 15, 16, I also hit my rebellious age. So I was a bit, wanted to stick the middle finger up as well.
Yeah.
And I could not fathom how the hell did some of my friends know what they wanted to do and what
Yeah.
course they were going to do. What miracle, how did they get that
Yeah.
clarity?
Yes.
I was
As in when you were
like,
choosing, you were like, how are my
yeah.
friends doing this? What?
How did they know they want to be like
yeah.
one of my besties, a radiation therapist? How does she know that she
Ah.
wants to be a radiation therapist? What the hell? I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Yeah.
Do you know? At the age of 15, one of my friends decided he wanted to be a pilot. And his
Wow.
parents put him through pilot training as he was a teenager before he even had his
Yeah.
driver's license. And then he
Amazing.
became a pilot.
That's amazing.
He flew for Qantas and
So
stuff.
you- Wow.
Like,
So you
how
didn't
did
have
these
that clarity.
people know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had no idea. And no one was having the conversations with me.
Super
And
interesting.
I think that was a really big missing part of the puzzle.
Right.
Yeah.
I know when I was 12, I wanted to be a secretary.
Did you?
Yeah,
Typing
I
on
went
the
through
keyboard.
typing courses. I mean, I told you about the business thing and that in my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm going to try typing. So I took up typing and then I took up shorthand.
Yeah.
So I learned how to do shorthand. It was a very interesting topic, but subject to learn. I don't know why I didn't keep that up because it would have been really good in employee relations. We were taking all those notes and doing all the shorthand.
I was thinking
But,
about that.
Yeah, right. And I did typing, business studies, all the business typing.
Right.
But I didn't know I still didn't, that was an inclination for me. That's why I'm asking you, did you have an inclination or was it, intentional? For me, it was I was just inclined.
I think by that point, I was just like, I don't know. There was a lot of other things that were missing for me,
Yeah. That's
in terms
amazing.
of myself
Yes.
and
yes.
knowing myself. There was
Yeah.
big chunks
Yeah.
missing for me. And so then I guess the way that I ended up finding my way through was we had work experience in year 10. I did the
Yes.
first lot of work experience at a horse stables, like a trail riding place.
Okay.
I was mucking out the stables.
How did
and
you
I
come up
thought-
with
'cause
work
I thought,
experience at horse stables?
Because this would be fun, right? Then I get to go and I play with the horses and I go on trail rides. Like that's what I thought.
Okay.
I spent the whole time pretty much mucking out stables
Oh,
and it
man.
was freezing and it was up in the
Horrible.
hills in the Dandenong Ranges. It was awful.
Smelling
and I
like
thought,
shit the whole time.
yeah, I don't think this is for me.
That's hilarious. Did you get to ride horses at
Like
least?
once, right?
All right.
I don't know how long I was there for, a week or two. And then through that personal development program, I met someone who owned a plant nursery.
Ah.
And he said, "Oh, come and do your work experience with me."
Okay.
And so
Wait, you switched work
no,
experience?
like there was 2 lots of work experience
okay.
placements.
Yeah.
And so then I did that with him and I was like, yeah, this is all right. I don't mind this. And
Yeah.
then I ended up doing my part-time jobs and stuff there.
Right.
And
Perfect.
I really didn't know what else to do. And my mum and dad really wanted me to go to uni. And I thought, I don't know what to choose.
Okay.
I
That's what I
hadn't
wanted
been
to ask
putting
you.
in-
Post high school, what did you?
And then I studied horticulture,
Okay.
applied science,
Wait.
horticulture.
So through all of this time where you put your middle finger up at your subjects because you didn't know
Yeah.
what you wanted to do, you still managed to get through high school and you graduated to get to university.
Yeah, I did. It's funny that you say it like that
Yeah.
because the way that I see it is that I didn't do my best.
Ah.
I've still got a thing about it. It's
Yeah.
really weird.
Really?
Yeah, probably. Like
reflecting
I don't
back, you
really
could've-
have
you're like-
regrets, but that is probably one of the things that I regret is that I didn't give it my absolute best. I have no idea what I would have been capable
But why
of.
do you regret that?
Because it's unfulfilled potential.
Really? I think
Yep.
we all have that though to a degree, whether it's that point in high school or whether it was
Or later.
later
yeah.
in, like your 20s or something.
Yeah. And there is something for me about what does it take to live a life where you've fulfilled your potential? What does that look like? What does that feel like?
Yes.
What impact does that have?
That is such a difficult question to answer.
It is because you don't know until you get there.
That's right.
And at what point can you say you've
But
arrived
then
in that
how do you, I
place?
was going to say, how do you know you've even got there?
I think it's an internal measure, and that's
Yeah.
an integrity
Ah,
question.
Interesting. Yeah.
I think it's an integrity question. For me, integrity is not just doing what you say you're going to,
right.
it's how well are you living it in alignment with your values.
I was going to say, or is it a values question?
It's a values question.
Or is it both? You know, it could play into both. But I do
To
think
me, integrity is that next level of integrity. It's the depth of living a values-based life.
that's super interesting, Don, because, and I agree with you. I think they're the pillars of, you know, how you live your life or how one lives their lives. But I always think about it as, what is my purpose? You know, what is actually my why? And I
Yeah.
think, and that
It's
I
a
feel
big
like that is even
question.
bigger than, you know, the integrity, the values. I feel like purpose is the next level up. You're kind of going, all right, well, I know I'm going to be led by my values. I'm going to work with my own integrity, the way that I've defined it or whatever. And then ultimately, I need to understand why I'm doing it and what is actually my purpose. That's kind of where I
totally
You
get
know?
what you're saying there. I feel like, and we might talk about this as part of my career progression, I feel like I've been in that space. I've understood what my why is. I've understood what purpose is for me.
Right.
And I feel like I've fulfilled that to a degree.
Yeah.
And so I also see so many people having the conversation about, I know I've got a greater purpose in this. I don't know what it is.
Mm,
Like they think there's one purpose for them living,
yeah.
or like their sole purpose, if you like. Like, what are
Yes.
they here for?
Yes.
Well, the big life questions. What
Yeah.
are you here for?
Yeah.
And to me, I'm going to lay everything out on the table, right?
Do it.
From what I've seen in my work, that is a double-edged sword, that question.
Mm,
Because on one part, it's the part of you that never feels fulfilled. It's the part of you that always wants more, that is like striving for, there's something else here. I can't figure out what it is. Am I ever going to get there? It's this like kind of a question mark that sits inside of you.
yeah.
On the other hand, if you've got clarity about it and you feel like you can fulfill it, then that's awesome. But the question around purpose, I think, can be a bit tricky for some people.
Yeah. I agree. I think it can be very tricky.
Yeah. It's tricky when you're not in it.
I
when
actually think it's tricky if you are living, for example, maybe a life that is, I think, either it's not an unfulfilled life. I just think it's tricky if you're yet to live a full life. I think,
Yes.
for me at least, if I haven't lived a full life, how the hell would I know what my purpose is? Right. And this might sound rudimentary, but I think, you know, you've come out, like, your 20s is a decade of just complete and utter uncertainty because you're expected to know what you're doing in life. But shit, you've just come out of high school where you were forced to learn in a certain way
Yeah.
and then learn with people that you didn't have a choice to learn with.
Yeah.
So you're placed in this place
Peers
where
and teachers.
peers,
right?
teachers, you're plunked there and you're told, do this, 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 and this, learn in this way, structure. And then you come out of high school, which was complete structure. You had your parents' safety. You had the safety of, you know, kind of the boundaries of school, if you like. Maybe it wasn't safe for a lot of people. So I can't speak to that.
Yep.
No, I can actually. I was bullied and I went through all that shit. But you come out of
But
this
there was still structure.
world
and
of
routine.
structure and
Mhm.
knowing, and then you're expected to know and have no structure, and you're expected to also blend in with a massive society of people in the world, because God knows, you know, whether you're still living at home or whether you are now out of home and you're going to have to learn how to pay bills, all that sort of stuff, right? So I always see the 20s as a decade of experimental learning about life and all that sort of stuff. So my 20s is just this foundational piece of learning, getting to know myself and others, and then finally trying to find a relationship. So purpose at that point is just not even entering your mind, right?
Yep.
Because you're still trying to
Just trying to
ride the
figure out
roller
how to
coaster of
do
life and how the hell you survive in now what is your life and not, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, what's tomorrow going to look like? All that sort of stuff. And then I feel like in my 30s is when I really started to get the wheels in motion for me. I still didn't know what my purpose was. I was just grinding the wheels by that point. I was just like, shit, my brain's now fully developed. I think I now want to own a house. I think I now want to be, you know, doing these things. I think I now want to do well in my job. You know, I mean, I was trying to always do well in my job, but I think I now know why I want to earn money. You know, it's all those sorts of things. So on the question of purpose, it's not an easy thing to know. Like I only knew my purpose late in my 40s, you know, and sometimes I would go to work, and I always say this to people because I sound like a broken record. You don't always find a job that makes you punch your fist in the air and get out of bed and you're like, fuck yes, this is my job. I'm going to go out there and conquer everything in my job. No, that doesn't happen for 90% of people, right? And so for me, when I came to that realization, I was like, what is my purpose actually for why I'm going to this job? My purpose might be external. It's actually all the things around me. So purpose is I agree with you. But I think ultimately that is something that you inevitably come to. I think it's an awakening. It's an epiphany that when you've gone through all your experiences in life, I feel like ultimately it'll lead to your purpose. But
do you?
It could be different for people.
I do think it's really different for people when that purpose, to me, that the question about purpose is kind of an awakening process. It's opening up something deeper on the inside. And I suspect it's much easier to get there when you've done a level of, you know, if you've experienced trauma or challenges in your life, you know, once you've done a certain amount of healing, what I call healing or therapy or whatever, I think it's a lot easier to get to that place of clarity when you've done that kind of inner work.
Yeah. And you know what, Don? I also think purpose is not a right or wrong answer.
Agree.
I think purpose is something that you eventually get to when you feel like you've seen enough of the world, well, not the world, but when you've done enough in your life, like the capacity that you can take on is when you then eventually find your purpose.
That's a really good point. That word capacity is a really interesting word. I think there are times in our lives that we have less capacity because we've got whatever going on. And then there are times that we have more capacity, or there's some inner calling where we're like, this is the time.
Yeah.
This is the time to explore this more.
Agree.
I also think with purpose that it's a choice. And I think
100%.
we can really choose which path we go down and how that purpose is expressed in the world.
Yeah.
Because I think it can be expressed in different ways, and it needs to be something that from a practical sense works.
Yeah.
Like works with the rest of your life, supports the rest of your life, or it can somehow support your purpose. The rest of your life can support your purpose. There needs to be some sort of harmony there, like not just throwing the rest of your life away to pursue that.
Yeah.
100%
with you. I think, you know, when it comes to that, and I am, you know, I used to be allergic to the word purpose. When people ask me, you know, what's your purpose? What's your why? Why do you wake up in the morning? To be honest with you, Donna, I would actually say to myself, I don't fucking know. I'm just trying to fucking live, survive. I don't have the capacity to think about what my purpose is right now because really it took me a lot to be here at work in the first place.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like I had to wake up and get out of bed in the first place to get here and actually
that
then
was
answer.
significant.
Such a huge question, especially if you're being asked in your early 30s, even though I said I started to find my mojo. My mojo wasn't purpose at that point in time. It was actually my mojo was, oh, I think I want to do this now. And I felt more liberated to be my own person without caring about people's judgment of me and opinions of me. That is what I define to be my mojo in my 30s But then to be asked, what is your purpose and your why? I don't know. What are your
Well, I
thoughts
think
about
that
that?
that question needs to there needs to be a whole lot of context before those types of questions are asked of people.
Yeah.
You know, as you said, that's a huge question. Do we care enough about each other to have a foundational connection first?
Yeah.
Like, do I know you enough? Do I know the context
Mm,
of your life and what's going on for
true.
you? Because that question, as you said, might be completely irrelevant at this
Mm,
point in time.
it's true.
And maybe we can just show each other enough care to
Yeah.
before we
'Cause
launch into, big questions like that
I agree.
or
I agree. I think half
other
of us are trying
insensitive
to
questions.
cope to begin with, let
Yes.
alone trying to figure out who we're going to be.
A
And,
lot of people are in that phase, right? Survival.
a lot of us. And I think, what's weird, I reflect on this as we're speaking about it. And I recently asked our youngest, what's your purpose and your why? Kind of figure out what that is. And then hopefully it'll keep you on track and not
Mhm.
feel like, you're always going off the rails, if you like. I do think we need some guardrails. I think in life we do need to have something that will, sort of guide us through life,
Yeah.
values, integrity, and all that sort of stuff. But I do think there needs to be something greater, whether that's called purpose or whether, I think when you're young, you need to just have to know that you have something greater that you want to work towards, not necessarily be, but what is that greater thing that will help to keep you on the straight and narrow? Because
Mm.
it can be so easy, especially when you're a young person in your 20s and even early 30s, to be derailed.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I really feel like that your values can be those guardrails until you figure out
True.
the bigger questions.
Yes.
And so, yeah,
And so values, was that a big thing in your family growing up? Because we had values, but I feel like they were defined a little bit differently when I was a kid.
I agree. Ditto what you
Mm,
said.
yeah.
Yeah, that there was values spoken about.
Mm,
I don't really want to say more than that probably because I don't want to be like disrespectful of
yeah.
where I've come from.
Yes.
So, and I really value what I've been given as well.
Mm,
So, but I think that there's been a really steep learning curve for me over the last few decades
yeah.
around values
Yep.
and around behavior, my own, how
Mm,
responsible I'm being for myself, for my thoughts and my feelings,
yeah.
how responsible I'm being around taking action connected with my purpose and where I'm sitting with that, how much that's fulfilling me or not fulfilling me, and where am I growing and where am I stagnant and what's giving me the shits now and, what am I
Yeah.
doing about it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So to me, it's been, I reckon I had an idea about what my purpose was from probably my early 20s. I just had no idea how to actually implement that.
Yeah.
And then I would say it took me into my mid 30s,
Yep.
which happened to be at the time when I had Violet, my daughter. So I've got two kids, as you
Yep.
know. But when she was born, a whole lot of crap came up for me that I
Right.
had to really address.
Yeah.
And it was a huge awakening time,
Mm,
which sometimes birthing kids can be.
right.
But in that whole big melting pot of a whirlwind and sleep deprivation, I would say mid 30s is when I hit my stride,
Right.
both within my
After both children.
Yep.
So did you
Not
go through that
without
when you were pregnant with Archie, with your
Oh,
first?
I
Not necessarily
didn't
Archie, but
have
your first?
I didn't have the support I
Right.
needed post birth with Arch.
Yeah.
I didn't have any kind of like I had my husband,
Hmm.
but we're just muddling through newborn life together, figuring
That's
out how to
right.
keep this baby alive,
True.
right? Like, what the hell are we
Yeah.
doing? And there wasn't really much space or I didn't have the support mechanisms
Yeah.
for dealing with all the stuff that was coming up for me, which
Crazy.
impacted our relationship a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we found our way through that.
Yes.
And then after we had Archie, I wasn't ready to have another baby for a little bit. it was just so full on figuring out motherhood. And then I was
Motherhood, yeah.
working as well, right?
Yes. Full
And
time.
then,
No, part time.
For 3 or 4 days a week,
Yeah.
4 days a week.
Almost full time.
Yeah, well, they were long days.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe it was 3. I can't remember. And then I had a miscarriage after that. And then it took a little while to fall pregnant again. And then I did fall pregnant. And by that time, I guess, I don't know, maybe I'd started getting more self-awareness on this path of motherhood and trying to find myself again. And yeah, all of those things.
Could I ask you actually then, so you eventually became a mother, but when you were going, if I could go back to uni,
Yeah.
had you met Nudge then?
No.
Right, so Nudge was post-uni.
Yeah.
So when you were studying through university.
It was mid-20s, in my mid-20s.
I see, post, yeah. So when you were in uni, did you actually start to feel like you knew what you were going to do in your career and,
No.
you know, what you were still muddling your way
I
through
had no idea.
uni?
It's
Did you
like-
find people that you were connecting with or anything like that in uni? Was it?
Connecting with?
The reason I ask you about university is because there's always this expectation, right? On many families have high expectations on their kids to do well in high school, get to university, study that, and then finish it and do the things you studied for the rest of your life. Was that something that, number one, was an expectation of you? And then secondly, when you got through university, did you think, oh, yeah, this is now.
That's a good question. I don't even know if my parents had that expectation of me. They definitely had the expectation that I would walk away with a uni
degree
qualification
of some sort.
right? So that was very clear.
Right.
But as it happened, the time of which I was completing my uni course, my parents separated.
Right.
So everything kind of
Damn.
dissolved
Yeah.
in my world around that time.
I'll bet.
Mm.
Yeah. Right. So you got
So
through
I
that
don't
then.
know whether they actually was still, they thought that it was probably a good path for me.
Yeah.
Like,
But didn't set any high expectations on you to.
I think they were too preoccupied with what they were going,
Yeah.
with what was happening for them.
Yep.
And I get that.
Yeah. And then did you go straight into the workforce or from there?
Then I decided to do a bit of traveling with a boyfriend at the
Oh.
time, which wasn't the best idea in the world because we
Really?
had no money. And he wasn't
You had money for the
airfare. That's about it, let me tell you.
Oh, wow.
And
Where
we
did
were
you
gonna
go? Where did
work-
you-
We went to WA. We were going to work on, or we did work like doing, working on vineyards. So
Wow.
on grapevines and stuff and picking fruit and things. And we thought we were going to make all this money, right? No, we
Ah.
didn't.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's so
And it
interesting.
wasn't a very healthy relationship. So
Right.
after some time I came back, we came back and yeah.
What did you then do?
And then I was like, well, I actually don't want to work in vineyards in gumboots in the middle of winter.
Something about you wanting to always get into gumboots, isn't there? Whether you're in stables cleaning out the shit of horses or you're on vineyards.
What was I thinking?
Did you feel like you were kind of drawn to that? Maybe you thought you were this nature
Yeah,
loving
Right,
person
and
who wanted to be out
true.
in nature
Like
with.
I love nature,
Yeah.
but I love it when I
But you don't
choose
really
to be
love
out in
nature.
it.
I love nature, but nature has to be
like
not.
sunny and no wind. No. Or like let me choose that I want to walk on the beach in the wind, in the rain.
Right.
Like then if I'm choosing it, it's fine. But
You
like,
wanted climate controlled nature.
100%. I hate being cold.
Oh,
like,
Lord.
yeah.
Well, I bet you learned you were quite precious back then
Well,
with your
evidently,
surroundings.
looking back, I
That's
remember
hilarious.
later on having a job in an office, and I would be like walking in the depths of Melbourne winter, going, "This is the
Gross.
best."
Oh, no, you said it was
This
the
is the
best.
best. Walking into the warm office,
Oh.
right? Like the heated office. Like, look at the miserable Melbourne weather outside.
Oh,
This is the
Lord.
best. I don't even have
This
a
is
jacket
okay,
on.
you were born in Melbourne, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
By
Anyway.
by 20, you hadn't acclimatized to the Melbourne weather. You still thought it was gross.
I'm in my mid-40s. I still haven't acclimatized to Melbourne winters. I still don't cope well with
that's
the cold.
fair.
It is
Neither
fair.
am I. That's fair. But I think if you go through perimenopause, it makes it a little bit different as well.
Right. Last year was my worst.
We have a
winter
reason,
ever.
Don. We have a
Oh,
reason
it's
by
the
now.
worst.
So for our young thirsty coconuts, your 20s were, early 20s were university, trying to get through, that you thought you were going to be entrepreneurial in the outdoors. You realize actually, no, I need my outdoors to be climate controlled, which is there's no such thing as climate controlled outdoor areas. And so then completed your degree. And then did you get, what was your first job?
So after like the travel like
Fiasco?
fiasco debacle, shit show. I came back and I got a job in a call center, like in a sales based role because I couldn't get anything else, and I was really bad at that. But they put me into quality assurance, and I was pretty good at that.
I didn't know that about you.
Oh, it was so many years ago.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't think this call center business is for me. And I had a couple of jobs. And then my dad met another beautiful woman. They've since remarried. And she got me a job working. No, she didn't get me the job. She was also working at Box Hill TAFE, teaching, and told me about a role, like an administrative type role in that TAFE. And I worked there for, a few years or something.
Right.
And so after that,
admin at TAFE.
Yeah, it was like a, front of house. It was in the hairdressing and beauty centre. So they had like customers coming in. So I was doing a bit of retail sales within that, just organising stuff for students, like all sorts of different. It was a bit of a mixed bag of a role. And then I went into, I got a personal assistant role after, I kind of progressed into personal assistant role.
Yeah. How did you know you were going to be?
Role in like a larger organisation, then got a PA job, then got sort of moved up a bit.
Yeah.
And then I was doing EA work and And
what's EA for those who don't know?
An executive assistant.
Yes.
And all of this just happened because people saw that I did my work well and, kind of.
So you became a super organised person because you have to be organised.
For me, that was easy. I guess that's one of my that
talents?
kind of comes second nature. It wasn't a push for me,
right?
And I was always happy and cheerful, and happy to help. So just tell me what you need to do. Let's do it.
Well, that's so different to working in the vineyards and
oh my God,
stables. And did you say you were working in
the plant nursery as well? I did that for a while while I was at uni and stuff.
Yeah.
So
executive assistant.
Yeah. Like to sales directors and then I went into a recruitment company. I was an EA in that recruitment company, dabbling in a bit of recruitment. Didn't really love the recruitment aspect.
Yeah.
Stayed in EA. And then I left that job. Was there anything between that? Anyway, there was a few bits and I was just in bits and piecey kind of jobs.
Were you living at home at the time? Had you moved out or anything? For the most
part, I had 1 year out of home.
Yeah.
And that was when I was working at the Box Hill TAFE, and then I moved back home. Mm-hmm. So I moved out with friends for a year.
And why did you move home? Why did you return home?
I wasn't saving any money.
Right.
It didn't end up working out that well with the, friends who I was living with. I just didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. And I was in jobs that felt like unfulfilling. I wasn't really happy. I was, it all felt a bit mediocre.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
And so you were out for a year of home and then, you just were like, oh, actually, this isn't probably right now for me.
Yeah.
Need to go back home.
Yeah.
And then you were working full time while you were at home? And how long were you home for while you were working full time?
Until I moved out with my now husband.
So being home for you then was, I guess, I
was paying board.
Yes. Was eventually a turning point for you in a way because it allowed you to work your job, save your money, get stable to some degree, find find a relationship with somebody.
Yeah, I think that was a thing. I had a couple of relationships in my 20s or a few, and it, you know, they didn't go that well
Mm,
after some time.
yeah.
And yeah, and all the while I'm trying to figure out who I am
Yep.
and figure out how to be happy and
Yes.
figure out how to do life. And
Yeah.
yeah, my 20s were a real mixed bag of all of that.
Yes. I remember my 20s. I went through such a difficult time trying to find out who I was as a person. Was that, did that for you take most of your 20s, or was it by the time you met
I
your
don't know if we've
husband,
talked about
you
this
then,
before, Rach. What happened was at the beginning of my 20s, after I came back from working in the wineries and stuff when I was interstate, I came back and I did 12 months of sitting in a psychic development circle while I
oh,
was working. This is at night.
yeah.
I learned how to
Gosh.
become clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, like how to become a medium, all of that sort of stuff. That's where I really developed like my intuition and my psychic abilities.
Gotcha.
And it was amazing. And then my teacher said, right, Donna, we're done. You're done here. You've learnt as much as you can. You're meant to be a healer. You're not meant to be a medium. So
Oh,
for those of
wow.
you who don't know, a medium is a psychic who can bring through people who have passed away.
Yeah.
I could do it, but it wasn't easy.
Yep.
I could do the other stuff more easily. We learnt about all sorts of different ways of bringing through information psychically, I guess you could call it. Anyway, after that, I was looking for that sort of next mentor,
Mm.
a healer, someone who would help me with that, the
Yeah.
next stage of my development, my spiritual development, if you like.
Mm.
And I met someone who I thought was that. Turns out they weren't,
Mm.
and how much should I share? I'll share a little bit. Basically, he was like, I was early 20s.
Mm.
He was mid 60s or something. Said that he was a practicing Buddhist and a massage therapist and stuff. And
Was he an actor?
he was a
A
charlatan.
bad actor?
Yeah, he ended up sexually assaulting me
Mm.
and was drugging me.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And so that was pretty horrendous
Yeah.
middle part of my 20s.
How did you pick that up as a young woman?
I came to halfway through one of the sessions.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, so it was during one session you
I
realized.
came to, and then I
Yeah.
was like, what is going
That's
on?
crazy.
And I flipped back out of
Right.
consciousness.
And at that point you realized, I'm not
Yeah.
in a good,
Yeah.
And that's when you you didn't abandon healing altogether. You just realized I was in a
I
spot.
did for a little bit, yeah, because I was like, what
Had
the
that traumatized,
fuck?
yeah, because that's trauma, right? Because that's,
Oh,
you would have gone
Full
through,
trauma.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because it wasn't just one occasion. I
Yeah.
realized it was more.
yes. As a young woman, you would have been in so many different mindsets at the time, kind of thinking, wait a minute, how did this just happen to me? I thought I was on the right path. I went through this experience and now I'm rethinking, actually, is this even right for me? And I also have to heal from what I just went through.
Yeah, it was really intense, to say the least. I feel like because that was all connected to my spiritual journey,
Yep.
I was like, fuck you, spirit. How could you let
Yeah.
me go through that in the name of, me growing and learning
Yes.
and all of that?
Yeah.
And just that, I guess where I came to now, like looking back, I always felt like I wasn't good enough. And I always felt like I had this gift within me that I
Right.
couldn't quite uncover. And I was looking for someone else to help me uncover this special part of me. I knew somehow I was special. I knew something I had inside of me was
Yeah.
special. And I was looking for someone else to help me to recognize that in me or
Yep.
whatever. And that set up this dynamic of me giving my power away,
Yes.
of me thinking that someone else knew better about me than I knew about myself. And that
Right.
was, probably something had been going on internally for me for quite a long time. Even though I'd done all that personal development work, I was nowhere near figuring out who I was.
Mm.
And yeah, so the synchronistic thing that happened after that was I went to the police station and
Yeah.
I just thought I'm going to stop on my way home from work.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I talked to this woman. And so she had me in, like, took me through to a back room and I was talking to her. I started crying when I was telling her what was happening. She goes, I'll be right back. I'll just get you tissues. She walked down the hallway and said, "You're never going to believe it. He's at it again."
Unbelievable.
The same detective who had dealt with this in
Yeah.
a previous
Someone else had
matter
reported that
about
happened
this
to them
same
as
man.
well.
Yeah. And I thought, what are the chances of that?
Yeah.
This is now undeniable.
Yep.
I can't make this shit up that
Yep.
this is actually what happened.
Yeah.
And then we ended up, it was a 5-year process with the
What?
police and court, and he went to
Wow.
jail.
Ah,
Yeah.
that would have
But
been.
this happened in November around Cup Day.
Yep.
And I said to Spirit, I was like, this is bullshit. Like,
This
if
is
you want me
nuts.
to go through this process with the police, which I had no idea it would take 5 years at that point in
Yeah.
time, right? Like, you
Man,
wouldn't.
What a chunk of your life.
It was hell. It was
Yeah.
absolute hell. And I said to Spirit, fuck you.
Mm.
If you want me to go through this and you want me to, like, help stop this guy,
Mm.
then you better bring me my soulmate by
Yeah.
the end of this year.
Wow.
Right?
And
That and then I kind of was like, yeah, I don't know. I just did that.
Yeah.
And then my
That's crazy,
good
Don.
friend Bridie was like, hey, there's a group of us. I didn't have a boyfriend at that time.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was the group of them going down to a holiday house down on the Mornington Peninsula. Come and spend it with us. Come down for New Year's Eve. And I thought, yeah, okay, I'll do that. New Year's Eve, I end up kissing her brother in the middle of the doorway at 3:00 in the morning.
Wow.
Turns out he was my soulmate.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, your spirit was right. You had to go through a really shit time.
Well, I was like,
And dig
if I'm
deep.
going to do this, you need to bring in the love, right?
Yeah. You dug deep, Don.
I did.
That is what you did, you know, and I
did.
think a lot of people, I generalize, don't I? I think there are people out there who end up digging really deep at a really young age and learn the unfortunate lessons and go through those people that are just really shit people to then find a better light. I think
Yeah.
unfortunately in your 20s, that is what I'm talking about. That decade is literally about finding yourself,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, through the shit times, the hard times. It's not a great
It
period
can be
in
really
your
challenging,
life.
especially around that first Saturn return when you turn 27, 28, astrologically speaking.
Mhm.
There can be real upheaval and turmoil around that time.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Mm.
So it's never actually, even though your brain's actually
And
full
then you
of,
have another one
oh, yes.
that
Tell
many
me.
years later, 54 to 56. How old are you?
54 next month.
Right? So there's
Tell me.
Well, you're going through your second Saturn return, which
I am.
means like
Feels like it.
upheaval or change, or maybe you want to like, it's sort of like, what have you been? It's kind of like when we hit midlife and we do the midlife
Yep.
crisis, which I call that midlife review.
Yes.
Like
And
you
by the
look
way,
back
I learned recently that midlife crisis can start at the age of 40 and go through to your 60s.
did you?
Well, that's what I
Well, that
learned
doesn't
anyway.
surprise me because I thought I hit something around just before I turned 40, and then I'm having like a whole nother version of that right
Yeah.
now. So I don't know. Go figure.
Sorry, I
But-
broke your mojo, and you were saying?
I think
Upheaval?
it's something along the lines of whatever's not in alignment in your life
Yes.
basically will fall away, and then you'll like think about what is it that I do want to be doing, like this real kind of evaluation point
Yeah.
in your life.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, I can't wait for that point. I mean, I know it's starting at the moment.
Yeah.
For me.
You can, yeah.
It's like I recently, probably not recently, I think it was just over time through my 40s, I thought to myself, I feel like And this is no slight on my job currently, because I've learned so much and I grew up as a person so much through my career, and I'm super grateful for my career and my job. But there's always a but. And I think if you're always evaluating yourself, there has to be buts along the way. But I started feeling institutionalized, and sometimes you can feel so institutionalized to within an inch of your life that you forget who you are, even in your 40s. And I thought, I haven't re-explored or revisited that artistic side of me that I remember when I was young, that I was very good at, but I didn't see anything of use in that sense to me, that I needed to just sort of say to myself, I need to do something creative. I just need to be exploring the other side of my brain and finding out if that's something that I deeply enjoy.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where I'm heading.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, that creativity can come in, thirsty coconut, or it can come in actually doing some drawing, or it could come in graphic design. Like it could come in traditional arts or non-traditional
that's right.
arts.
Furniture restoration.
Right?
Yeah.
All of those things, it can be expressed in so many different ways.
I always have this conversation with a certain person about art where we take that for granted, actually, and it's our freedom of expression, which can also lead to invention and the necessary things that we need in the world. So, for example, art is this piece of furniture that we're sitting on.
Yeah.
So somebody designed it, somebody thought up of the idea of what it was going to be like to sit on a comfortable couch and what that couch was going to look like. But actually that was art to somebody.
Yeah.
And
it's creation. It's creating something from nothing.
Exactly. It's that feeling of starting something from scratch, developing it, thinking it through, and I think that is also art. And it's not just your sort of the performances you do on stage in ballet or whatever. It's actually the things that you can also produce, which I think goes to human need of wanting to produce something that you've done for the first time in your life and feeling like you've accomplished something as well from scratch. I think for me, that's kind of where I'm heading, leading into my purpose. But
I love that.
And something that I want to do for the rest of my life, at least as far as I can see today,
Yeah.
So that's such a interesting thing I did not know about you, that you went through that whole journey before you then met Nudge, which was kind of like the icing on the cake at that point.
It was,
right?
And it's a new relationship, right? So it comes with its challenges as well. So it wasn't perfect for sure. But Spirit certainly delivered on the soulmate part, and that was good.
And that's all you need, though, don't you think? Like, can we talk a little bit about relationships in our younger years?
Oh, mate.
Your soulmate is typically, we lead with our eyes. Right? We're attracted to the person we see and we go, we're very fond of that person just from, at first. And you fall in love with what you see, but you don't fall in love with what you feel at the time.
Really? I mean, yeah, like there can be that lust and that attraction, but I also think that there's something, you're tuning into that person's energy at the same time. There is an energy, it's not just chemistry. I think that you're tuning into something that's more than that. I think at the heart of who we are as human beings, we're a feeling.
I agree.
We're a feeling-based being.
I agree. But would you not agree that in your 20s it is generally about the attraction?
Yeah, for sure.
The first kind of
but that attraction, I think, is also an energy connection.
That's
and sometimes
true.
There's a past life connection. Why do I feel so drawn to this person?
Yeah.
Like, what and why? Or like the relationship shit. Why can't I leave this person?
So
why can't I disconnect from them?
Yeah.
And you like have this sort of almost this karmic connection, and it's like, oh my God, can it be over?
Would you say that the work that you'd done, self-development, helped you identify that for you fairly early? Because I do think it's pretty early Like
Oh, no, I hadn't sorted that. I had
Oh,
not
that's so interesting.
resolved enough stuff within myself in those early days. I think that was just a really great opening for me. But my 20s was so shit in terms of those other relationships.
No, I know. But
But it
what
was
about your
an inner
intuition,
thing.
your gut?
Oh,
So, you're sort of,
didn't have enough of a sense of like wholeness from the healing that I needed to do yet until
Yeah,
I
gotcha.
really hit my 30s.
yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I say attraction because that's what happened to me. And it didn't, but that attraction didn't really lead to a soulmate at the time,
Yeah.
not until I met my Zena.
No, and they're
Towards
probably
the end of
just
my 20s.
relationships that teach you stuff, right? They're relationships that teach you, I don't know, how to have healthy boundaries. Maybe they help open you
Yeah,
up
it's true.
sexually. Maybe they
Definitely. 'Cause-
introduce you to their family, and their family is the
Yep.
kind of family that you always wanted. It teaches you, it might teach you all sorts of stuff. It might teach you hard lessons. It might teach you good lessons.
Yep. I think I wanted to, so we've delved into the relationship side of things. When did your business, you had a career in executive assistance, then
Okay,
you moved
yeah.
into other things, and then you eventually
Yeah.
got into healing?
Yeah, so I always did that. So I learned how to do Reiki when I was like 17 or something, and 16 or 17, can't remember. And then I was always doing like healing on the side, like my side hobby kind of / hustle, but I wasn't hustling. It was basically anyone who found me or came across me,
Yeah.
they could come and have a healing.
Yep.
And so I was always kind of doing that on the side. And I knew that I always wanted to do that just as my only work.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was connected to my purpose. Like
Yep.
always knowing that I wanted to make a contribution. I wanted to make a difference in some way for people. And that felt like the best way that I could do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when Violet was born, I remember I was sitting there, I was breastfeeding her in her room, and I thought, I just had this flash come through me like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
It's now or never.
Yes.
Like, I've got to give this a crack.
Yep. Give it a crack. I always say give it a crack.
Right.
How the hell wouldn't you know
It
if you
was
don't
the
give it a
words
crack?
That's how I felt. Like, they were the words at the time.
Yes.
I just need to give this a crack.
Yes.
Just need to give this a red hot go.
Gotcha.
And I remember walking out and talking to Nudge about it. He was like, okay.
Do it.
Okay. And so Violet was something like 5 months old at that point. We still were hardly sleeping.
And Archie was only
4.
4 years old.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so I started doing 10 minutes at night. Just as soon as I put Violet to bed,
Yep.
I would grab my book, 10 minutes of working on my business at night, which quickly turned into so I linked it up. A friend of mine was doing life coaching at that time, and she gave me a couple of free sessions as part of her her training pretty much.
Yes.
And she said, link up the new practice that you want to have, link it with something that you do every day. Like, well, every day I'm putting Violet to bed. And so as soon as I've done that, I go out into the lounge, I grab my book, and I start working on my business. And some days it was 10 minutes was a real push.
Yeah.
And other times I remember I was working on it for half an hour just like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was a really great, it was the best practical idea about how to start something was link it to something you do every day.
Right. Yeah. Because we don't think about that, do we? We just kind of think about this idea and go, oh, how do I continue it? Where do I start?
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, right. Where do I start? But once you start, actually you figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I guess over the years I'd had, people coming to me for healing off and on. And, I had some like kind of clients, I guess. And then when I made an announcement and I opened up, like I said, I'm officially opening up my doors for healing.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the floodgates opened.
Yes. How old were you then by then?
I was
Violet was 5 months old.
Violet was 5 months old.
Yeah.
And so I was 35.
Yeah. Mid-30s. Okay. Yep.
And then, not long after that, I was booked out for like 3 months in
Oh,
advance.
that's amazing. And were you still working your
Yeah, so
other gig
was on
at the
maternity
time?
leave
Yes.
with Violet, and
Ah,
I then hadn't like built my business to a income level that was sustainable for
yeah.
us, even though I was booked out as like, you know.
Yes.
And then I hang on, did the booking out happen before or after? Anyway, it happened somewhere around then. I don't want
Yeah.
to tell a lie. I ended up going back to ANZ to work
Yes.
and was doing all of the things. I think I was working 3 days a week.
Okay.
I was being a mum to 2 kids and one
Amazing.
young kid, you know, the rest of the time. And then I was working at nights doing my
Yeah.
healing work, and I was so tired,
Yes.
but I'd never felt so fulfilled.
Alive.
I'd
Oh,
never felt so fulfilled. And I
yes.
just was like, I had a sparkle to me that was like, oh, I always knew I was meant to be doing this, and
I
now I am,
love
and
that.
this is the best.
And you must have been like, oh man, this is where it's at for me. My healing work.
Yeah.
I know what I'm waking up for. It's
Yeah.
feeling right for me.
Yeah.
You know, even
Bang
though
on.
I've got young children around me running around, well, not necessarily the little 5-year-old, but
wasn't
5-month-old.
Yeah, she wasn't even running.
But
yet.
Archie was running around.
Yeah, it was a
Yet
bit
to go to
crazy.
school.
Yeah, it was in kinder.
Yeah.
But I felt like that soul connection with Violet was, you know, I love both of my kids dearly,
Of course.
right?
Of
And
course. You would
they're-
never
they're
pick
different.
one over the
They're
other.
different beings, but there was something about Violet that made me feel like we were here to raise each other.
I love that. And you know,
Like I felt like I was at that point, I just knew that I had to live out my dreams, because I didn't want to be that kind of mother that said you could do anything that you want, but they see
yeah.
me in a job that I'm not happy in.
Yes.
You know, I didn't want them to hear that encouragement. I wanted them to see it role modeled, so that would be
Love
their
it.
normal.
Yes.
And interestingly, at the same time that I started my business, then Nudge also started his business.
Wow.
It was kind of a big leap of faith for both of us.
Yep.
But I was also still working at ANZ. And then at some point I was like, no, I'm ready.
Throw
I
caution
got,
to
a, I
the
got a
wind.
business coach. They helped me with pricing and structures and stuff. And I was making more money by that time.
That's so good.
And then I
made the
I
leap
made
of
the
faith.
leap to leave my corporate job. And
Yeah. You made that leap of faith, right?
it was a leap of faith, but I'd also done the hard yards to build it up.
I was going to say.
Like, it wasn't like I just left with no clients and a brand new business.
Yeah.
I left at a certain financial income that meant that our family were going to be fine.
Yeah.
And I'd done so much work. I told you already, I
gonna
wasn't
say.
sleeping at night. I was doing kids in the day, working, healing at night, doing my corporate job as well. Like, it was a lot, and it was worth it.
Yeah. You were at a point of no return. You'd done enough to say to yourself, I think I'm good to fly now.
Well, it's funny, Rach, because I had a particular financial number in mind,
Mm-hmm.
which equaled the salary that I was on. And
How good.
I wasn't quite at that point, and I was walking out of where I was doing my healing work from, and I had this very quiet whisper, like through my left ear, it's time.
Mm.
And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that that meant it was time to leave my corporate job.
Oh, it's amazing, Donna.
And so I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Talked to my husband, and he
Yep.
was like, yep, that's fine. Things are
Yep.
going so well. Like, do it.
Post corporate job in the business. I mean, I know you had said to me a while back that running a business is not as easy as people think. There's lots
Yeah.
of, ups and downs, lots of challenges, in particular if you're just starting out and you're the one-man band at the time.
Yeah. Well, I have been the one-man band that
Yeah.
whole time, actually. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And so I guess for anyone who is going into business, what would be your advice?
My advice would be figure out what your strengths are, but build around your weaknesses like a fortress.
Right. Tell me about that.
So say I'm good at sharing authentically with people.
Yeah.
Let that be my marketing strategy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Say I'm not good at social media.
Yes.
let someone else do
Outsource
that.
it.
Or say, and I think as well, like there are always going to be things that you have to learn.
Yes.
And that's an ongoing process. It's
Yeah.
not set and forget, particularly not in my area anyway. Maybe some other businesses are different.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that having your own business is like the biggest personal development
Yep.
ride you can go on.
Yep.
Because you are constantly growing and evolving, constantly making mistakes, figuring out what you would do differently next time.
And are you also learning how hard you can work? Like
but
how
when
much
you're-
grit you have really,
Yeah.
and how resilient you can be?
There's a bucket loads of grit that you pull on that you didn't even realize you had.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there are times where it's going so amazing and it's just you feel ecstatic.
Yes.
Like, this is unbelievable. I can't even believe that, this is going so well.
Yes.
But I think the thing that I learned about all of that was realizing that I couldn't connect my worth with how well my business was going. Because
Right.
I was on an emotional roller coaster. Like, when it was going well, I was going really well. And when it
Yeah.
wasn't going really well, I
You were
wasn't going
going down
really
with it.
well. And it just seemed to be really like, that was one of the things that I had to learn, like disconnect how I'm feeling and my self-worth from how my
The
business is traveling. Yeah.
Right. And was that all part of building the fortress around, your
Well, yeah, around my weaknesses
Mm.
or my well-being.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I think that the business part really has been the hugest vehicle of growth for me.
Yes.
And for me, businesses have their own soul. Like, the soul of my business has been guiding me
That's
all
amazing.
of the way. And I think that our businesses, as their own kind of entity like that, they want things for us. Like,
Yep.
my business wanted me to grow up on the inside. My
Yep.
business wanted to develop infinite capacity and empathy for people.
Yep.
It wanted me to learn about relationship dynamics that I hadn't mastered yet. And I often felt like I was personally going through, like, I'd have these big aha moments or big lessons, and then inevitably I'd get flooded with people with the same kind of topic that they were bringing to
Crazy.
me, like, and so I really feel like my business has given me so much in terms of what I personally needed.
Yeah.
I needed to learn how to emotionally regulate myself. I needed to learn how to hold space for people,
Yes.
both my clients, but especially my kids.
Yes.
I needed to learn how to have the big feelings within myself and be available for other people at the same time, like a pure loving space.
Donna, that's something that I don't hear a lot about, is how connected people are with their business, because you hear a lot about how to run a business, the
Yeah.
bottom line, make the margins work, the marketing side of things,
Yes.
but you never really hear from the stories of, actually, that was a real connection point for me, and a point of growth,
Oh,
because
yeah.
your mindset, your growth, your ability to be resilient, that whole, and also it being part of you as well. I don't think that we talk openly about
that's
that.
interesting, because it's my normal, right? So I expect everyone kind of feels like this, but of course, no, that's not how people
Yeah.
talk about their businesses.
Yeah.
I
It's
feel
like it's your baby, right? You've got to,
it's my baby, but it's also a guiding light.
right.
Like, if you think about, a business has all of its own innate intelligence and wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's working with me on that soul level.
Yeah.
So what do I
Love it.
need as a soul for my growth? That's what it's been giving me.
I think the lesson here for me is when I'm listening to you talk about your business and what that did for you, is to, yes, all of the other stuff, the logistics is important as part of running a business,
Absolutely.
but equally it's important to connect with your business. Because
Yes.
that is your why, that is your purpose.
Yes, and every business has a different purpose. So every soul, like, I've done this work with lots of my clients as well. Interestingly, when people connect with the soul of their business, it often looks very different for each business. So one of my clients, his business, one of his businesses is like basically a cash cow. Like it's a
Right.
ka-ching machine. Do you
Yeah.
know it's a money-making machine?
Yes.
And then another business is really about making a difference for, in that particular industry that they work
Gotcha.
in. Like, my business it gave me everything. It's given me everything that I've needed.
Yes. It's so important because that's how clients are drawn to you, is that it's not a transaction, it's actually a relationship.
Yes, it is a
You've got a
relationship.
relationship with your business, you've got a relationship with your clients because you and your business have a good relationship together. I know that sounds a bit strange to think of it that way.
Maybe that's just like a good context or the way in which I operate, because then I think about any person coming to me, I think about, where are you at in your life right now and what does your soul want for you? Why are you going through what you're going through and what wants to come through for you? Like, what are the aspects that really want to grow in you? Does love want to grow? Does strength want to grow? Do you need peace of mind? Like, what are the things that want to come through? And so I'm intuitively basically connecting with that person's soul and listening to everything that they're saying and showing me, reading their energy at the same time, and then, taking it from there, like that really customized, personal approach.
Yes.
No one cookie cut.
No
No
one size fits all.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. I love that about you. And that's such a good lesson. And so many there's so many TED Talks, podcasts that always think about companies that have to come up with a mission statement and a purpose and all that sort of stuff. But it's actually something that can be inherent as well in the business. So your purpose and your why is not just a set of words that kind of, say this is our North Star. Your purpose and your why is the reason why you set up the business in the first place, and that connection point with your business as well. Not always easy to achieve.
Well, I've thought that the purpose of my business was to switch on people's lights, right, and to help them connect with their true essence, to really be radiant and be their authentic selves.
Yeah.
And I've realized over time, like, I'm the last person that this dawns on, right?
Right.
When it's about yourself, actually, that's what my business has given me too.
Yeah. Donna, what an insightful conversation we've had. I've learned such a great deal about you, and I know that so many thirsty coconuts that are out there would have gone through any parts of your story and gone, oh yeah, that's me today. Or even in the future gone, oh, that's something I need to think about in the future and something maybe I need to consider. And maybe it might be a course correction for others as well. I want to ask you a question, one last question. If success were a coconut, what 3 key ingredients, whether it be mindset, actions, or experiences, that would crack it open to achieve success?
Emotional intelligence.
Okay.
But I'm going to put that in, I'm going to explain that. Asterisks.
Asterisks?
Okay, here's my asterisk for emotional intelligence. To me, emotional intelligence is not just how I'm feeling is XYZ. To me, emotional intelligence is I know what I'm feeling and I know how to process emotion.
Yep.
Yeah, so emotional intelligence. Strength, grit, and determination.
Yep.
That's my second one.
Yes.
I'm squeezing
all
more
3.
words. I'm squeezing more
Love
words
that.
into one.
You're allowed to do that.
Intuition.
Yes.
For me, it has to be intuition, because you're really listening then. You're really listening to yourself. You become authentic. Your path becomes authentic. It takes care of you at the same time as you taking care of other people. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Donna?
Emotional intelligence, strength, grit, and determination. And
I love that, Donna. Do you know why? Because on the emotional intelligence side of things, your IQ will get you through the door, but your EQ will get you a seat at the table.
100%. I've learned that over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to me on Thirsty Coconut. That's been such an eye-opening experience, at least for me, and I hope for Thirsty Coconuts out there.
I've had the best time with you, and thank you for having me as part of your show.